for being here, our local media for covering this, what we feel is a very important message to our citizens. I want to thank representatives of each and every fire district here in St. Tammany Parish for taking time out of their busy schedules for being here, as well as representatives from the State Fire Marshal's Office and representatives of the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry. Today we've come together because of the uncontrolled wildfires and the potential for the spreading of wildfires here in St. Tammany Parish that's been nearing the most severe it has ever been. Today we see record heat and lack of rainfall that has created optimal conditions for fires to spread, and these same conditions have severely impacted our local firefighters. A heat advisory is currently in effect for St. Tammany Parish per the National Weather Service. Unfortunately, hotter days are in the forecast for the next few days. They're forecast to continue at the 100-degree temperature for the next few days. So this may get worse before it gets better. In the past few weeks, we've had several wildfires break out here in St. Tammany Parish, as well as in neighboring parishes, and our own firefighters have been called to assist. On August 2nd, I issued an executive order and signed a burn ban into effect for St. Tammany Parish. I did this after consulting with our local fire districts and felt at that time it was appropriate to do so. Subsequently, a statewide burn ban was issued on August 7th. My message today, and you'll hear from our firefighters, is please do not have outside fires, do not burn debris, do not burn trash in your backyard or on your property. The conditions are dire at this point. Just yesterday, a discarded cigarette started a wildfire in a neighboring parish, and some of our agencies were called to assist in that regard. Please take steps to protect our community and to protect personal property, and maybe even protecting lives. If you see a fire, report it immediately to 911 or the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry. They have an emergency hotline at 855-452-5323. At this point, I'm going to introduce Mr. Clint Ory, who is the Director of Parish Emergency Operations and Homeland Security. Clint, will you come up, and we'll have a few words from some of our fire districts as well. Clint?
Thank you, President. So really the message here, and it's not to be an alarmist, but it's to be a realist. We want everyone to understand that we're in, and you hate to use the word unprecedented because it feels like it's used too much, but it's really the situation we're in. We normally do not experience the extended periods of dry conditions and heat at the same time for the months that we've been experiencing that. Our conditions now are very similar to what you see in the West, where you see these out-of-control wildland fires occur. And the normal natural barriers that we have that serve as fire breaks throughout our community, those creeks, rivers, ponds, bayous, all of the waterways that serve as natural breaks, even those are starting to dry up. The amount of distance fire has to travel has been shortened because those have been reduced, and at the same time have reduced the amount of water that our firefighters have to pull from. Oftentimes those are the sources of water that they use, particularly in our more rural areas. And so the situation is unique. We're normally not in this type of situation, and so the burn ban certainly is important. But we're asking people to be even aware of things that they do that produce heat outside. So those that work outside, cook outside, please take extra precautions. And even around your home, if the recommendations have a 30-foot barrier around your home, that's not something that we normally would have to consider, meaning that the grass is cut short, that there's nothing stacked around your house that's combustible within that 30 feet, that you have a garden hose that can reach around the house if you had to. That may be the difference between holding the fire off until it burns your property. And then having a plan for your family, for your pets, your livestock. What are you going to do if there's a fire approaching? And so being alert to those emergency alerts and what's going on around you. And certainly if you see smoke or fire, call 911. Normally we don't, at least in St. Tammany Parish, it's normally not something we would say out loud, but right now it is that dire, it is that important that we do so. And so that's really just the thing we want you to know is it's important to be prepared. And we're going to put some resources. I recommend ready.gov, but we're going to put some resources on our social media and our webpage linking to that so that you can read. It's not a risk that we normally have to be concerned with, but we do now. And so with that said, we're going to hear from our firefighters, and while I have them behind me, I want to thank them for the job that they've been doing. I've been listening to this, monitoring it, talking to them, not only here in our parish, but in other parishes. They have done an exceptional job. We haven't lost anyone's life here in St. Tammany Parish, no serious injuries, and we're very grateful to our law enforcement and our EMS service, the Canadian Ambulance, that's been responding in many instances with these to help control these wildfires and keep the area safe. And so with that, we'll turn the time over now to Chief Scott Brewer. He is the fire chief of St. Tammany Parish Fire District 9 that covers the Bush and Sun area. He's also the second vice president of the Louisiana State Fire Chiefs Association. And so we'll now be pleased to hear from Chief Brewer.
I think it says a lot when you've got all the fire departments represented at one location. This does not happen unless it's truly something that we need to get out to the media. And thank you for sharing this. Our message is simple. Don't burn. This is happening all over the state, not just St. Tammany, and resources are being taxed. Everything that we have has been committed to fires in other districts as well as our own. And when something happens in our district and we're out of district, like in the Washington Parish, we have to recall them, and it's very difficult. As Clint mentioned, the water sources are drying up. These natural fire breaks that aid us in keeping fires contained are no longer there. Also, these sources for water, ponds, rivers, streams, creeks, are dried up. In a rural fire department such as mine and Bush, we have only one water source, no hydrants. We have creeks, ponds, and rivers, and when those dry up, we're out. So I'm simply asking, do not burn. Please. This is taxing the manpower, this is taxing our budgets, this is taxing everything. Every time we roll, it costs money. We've authorized unlimited overtime to try to get more people to come in. That's how bad it is. So please share the message, don't burn, and if you see something, call 911. Don't call a station, don't report it on Facebook, call 911. That's what it's there for. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, President Cooper, for allowing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We're gonna have a Q&A.
Yeah, if you would like to talk about that, Chief. I think we ought to try. Okay. So President Cooper wanted to open up to some questions, but one of our fire chiefs would like to talk about some of the health concerns, because we're also at the same time we're having these increase in fire calls. We're also having an increase in all the calls, and so that is a compounding issue, right? The more resources are responding to large fires with a lot of resources, the less resources there are to respond to other types of emergencies. And so we'll now hear from Chief Pat Seacard, who'll talk about some of those issues. Chief Seacard.
Thank you. We've talked a lot about the dry conditions and how it's taxing the fire districts with trying to keep up with the suppression. We also want to touch bases on the health aspects. It's very hot, very humid, so it is much more difficult for us to tolerate the heat because of the high humidity. Just want to express, when you're out in this heat, remain very hydrated, take regular breaks in the shade or in the air condition, and watch and monitor how you're reacting to the heat. If you stop sweating, you need to get out of the heat. If you're not remaining hydrated, you're not drinking on regular bases, you need to get some water and not put this off and procrastinate your rehydration. Your heat exposure can advance to heat exhaustion, which can segue into heat stroke, which is the most life-threatening heat emergency. So pay attention to this, stay hydrated, and protect your health. It can come upon you faster than you think. So I just wanted to remind everybody of the health dangers and how to prevent heat emergencies in conjunction with the previous advisories on the burn ban. Thank you.
Are you getting more calls of people who have heat-related illness who need attention, medical attention?
We do receive that. At District 3, we do handle an ambulance service as well as fire. So yes, we are handling medical heat emergencies as well as the woods fires and debris fires.
In a higher number, have you seen it increase lately?
It's not extreme in numbers, but compared to the cooler months, yes, you do see that develop.
So, I want to ask one of
Yes.
the chiefs. Do y'all see any pending charges, criminal charges or arrests, or what can people be arrested for if they throw a cigarette or somehow start a fire?
Yeah, would you like to address that, or would you like me to? So just understand that proving a crime, there has to be intent. But even if you accidentally cause a fire, you are liable. That has been talked about in the press. There's been multiple discussions about that. So, in fact, in a conference call with GOSEP, that was mentioned by the Louisiana Department of Forestry, who is the authority when it comes to wildland fires. They have that responsibility statewide, and they're very busy right now. It's why the gentleman that was scheduled to be here from them could not make it. They were handling fires. So yes, there's a liability for sure, and certainly if they can prove that you intentionally did it criminally. But yeah, there's a big liability in this. If someone is injured, hurt, or property is lost, you could be held liable for those damages.
We saw the Maui fire. They're looking at power lines now. I think we had a power line situation with one of our fires last week. Are you or President Cooper in touch with Energy on their prevention methods, and how big of a concern is that?
It's a big concern, and yes, we have. I've talked to them regularly, both WST and CLECO. We do have a little piece of Entergy in the very southwest portion of our parish. Most of our parish is covered by CLECO and or WST Electric, Washington State Tammany Electric. They're aware of it. They're trying to do what they can. And so again, that's why we say, in fact, one of the fires I think that happened in Bush, Chief Brewer was speaking to you earlier, it went out as a smoke investigation just in the area, and they continued to pursue it till they found it. It ended up being a large woods fire that ended up endangering structures, and forestry had 4 bulldozers out there, but it came in, people didn't see flames, it just smelled and saw smoke. That's how that got started. I don't remember if that was one that did start from a power line.
It was a transmission line.
A trans-
50,000 volt transmission.
Yeah, so that has happened, and we are aware of it. There's really not much they can do other than just to continually monitor it and patrol it, and they are doing that. And so, as mentioned, that is a risk that can happen, and accidents can happen. And so what we're, again, just trying to encourage people, 1, to be really aware, 2, to be really prepared and know what they're going to do if something happens and paying attention to that. And 3, anything that you can do to help reduce the risk, so not burning and being careful when you are doing any type of hot work outdoors or cooking outdoors, taking extra measures of precaution. Those are the things that are going to help us stay safer. Any other?
Meg asked about somebody who may have thrown out a cigarette butt or whatever, but if you catch somebody burning trash openly right now, in spite of this burn ban, what can be done about that?
So, yeah, so, just as always, we try to give people the benefit of the doubt. We try to warn them, ask them to put it out. We put it out and tell them, look, as a burn ban, you can't do it. But if that continues to happen, that subject came up on the call as well. Many of our fire departments here in St. Tammany Parish have fire prevention bureaus. They will go out and handle that. And yes, they can be issued a citation. Law enforcement is involved as well. They understand the dangers and have been witnessing this firsthand. And so they're being more vigilant in that. We try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but because of the extreme danger, yes, you can be cited for it. And again, you definitely could be held liable civilly for any damages you cause. And so it's just not worth it right now, as dangerous as it is.
So on that same thing, why do people burn trash? Is it because their trash pickup is, monthly instead of weekly?
So-
pick up garbage more frequently?
Just to clarify, no one should be burning anything other than sticks, leaves, cut grass, natural vegetation. That is the only thing legally in the state of Louisiana you can burn. DEQ has laws for that. You can be cited. That's a whole different thing. When we say trash, we'll call them trash pile fires, but they mean like yard debris. That is legal to burn in areas where there's no restrictions. And so there are multiple areas in St. Tammany Parish where there are. You cannot burn in any of the city limits of Mandeville or city of Covington. There's Slidell. So mostly within your city limits, you're not allowed to burn, but in your rural areas, you can, and it's part of land management. And normally, here in Louisiana, it's not a very high risk. It is right now. It's a dangerously high risk, and so those practices have to stop for now. But yeah, as far as burning anything other than that type of material, it's illegal. You cannot do that.
But right now,
Don't burn anything, right? That's what we're asking you, don't burn anything.
Mr. Brewer mentioned unlimited overtime for firefighters. Are we seeing any strain right now on just the office firefighters that you guys have, working to put out these different fires?
Yes, we are. My guys work shifts, and they're staying over extra shifts to help the other people. In a small rural fire department such as ours, I typically have 2 or 3 people on duty every day. Yesterday, we had 3 fires at the same time. So, and myself and another chief that we have there that work days, we're responding with them as well to help. But I'm getting people off duty. We're trying to get our volunteers in. Volunteers typically have jobs that support them, so they can't respond all the time. So by just having an extra 2 or 3 people on duty every day, that really helps us a lot. Because not only do we have to fight the fire, we have to get the trucks back in service. You have to clean the hoses, refill with water, back to the station. You got to rehydrate, and then get fuel. And you've got to do that in hopes that you have enough time before the next fire hits. And sometimes that's not happening. So we are running out of resources, and my guys and gals are being strained.
Scott, if people aren't getting this message, speak, if you will, just how difficult it is for your firefighters to work in these conditions, fighting a fire out in the forest or monitoring a hot spot for hours on end in direct heat.
It's hard. I mean, they have trucks that are air conditioned if they can get the trucks back to that point. If not, they're slogging it through the woods. We had 200 acres the other day. We were out in the middle of a cow pasture. Fences are designed to keep cows out. Sometimes you have to tear the fences down to get to the fire, and then cows escape. So now we got to look for cows. And yesterday I was on a fire. We were fighting the fire, and copperhead, big one, came out right by my foot. So scared me. My guys are having to deal with all this right now. There's a lot of snakes in the area. There's a lot of things that we're not typically seeing because there's no rain and there's no backup.
Where was this?
This is in Bush.
Are you in need of more help, and is any more help on the way either from the state or the federal government?
We've requested that. I'm also with the Louisiana State Fire Chiefs Association. We have requested that through channels. We're trying to get a survey done with all the fire chiefs in the state so that we can justify a federal response, which would open the doors to other fire departments in areas that aren't affected in the country, that are willing and want to come down and help, but they have to do it the right way.
How close or soon could that declaration come?
Well, our fire marshal, Dan Wallace, met with the governor yesterday about that. So we're gathering the information that he requested to hopefully get that back to him today. So we're hoping.
We have 12 fire districts in St. Tammany, is that?
13.
13. How do you all work together and help each other respond to fires that may not be occurring in your district?
We have an excellent working relationship with every fire district. We typically meet twice a month as a group, the chiefs. Just as an example, the other day when we had that large fire we were trying to find, I had 2 other chiefs call me on the phone. Hey, I can have a resource there in a couple minutes. My guy called me and said, hey, it might be on this road. So we communicate, and then when we need help, it's instant. They know. We kind of monitor each other's channels, so we know what's going on. We get trucks prepped, so if the call does come, we can respond that quick. And it's really comforting to know that I have this as a backup. We had units from Mandeville with a drone, which is a tremendous resource to us. Fire District 9 could never afford such a thing, but Mandeville is very generous with sharing that. We had District 6, District 8 from Abita, and District 12 come as well. They provide water, manpower, trucks, everything. And without them, we could not have extinguished that fire that quickly and saved is what we did.
And then Lee Road went up and helped with Bogachita yesterday
Yes, Lee Road and Folsom have been going up in Washington Parish almost daily.
Any more questions? So Chief Sanders, I'm sorry, Fire Protection Officer Sanders from Fire District 2 brought up a good point. We'll have him step up, something that is a really good idea.
I just want to ask all of our community partners, businesses, churches, anybody that has a marquee sign, if you could help us and put that information out that there is a burn ban. The more people that we can reach to let them know this message of a burn ban and do not burn will help us. So if you have a means to help us put that out, we'd greatly appreciate it.
As you can see, all of our fire chiefs here represent the entire St. Tammany Parish, from Madisonville, Folsom, Covington, Abita Springs, Mandeville, Pearl River, Hickory, Bush, Walheim, Slidell, Lacombe. Have I missed anything? And Goodby. We want our citizens to know how important this is, and this is emphasizing to you, our citizens, the importance of considering what the extreme conditions that we have now, extreme drought and extreme heat, which together is a perfect recipe for fires, and fires that we can control and fires that perhaps will be very difficult to control. So thank you all for your cooperation in adhering to the advice that you've heard from our fire chiefs, our firefighters, and those who protect us on a daily basis. Their resources are extremely strained at this time, and it's up to you, our citizens, to adhere to the practices that we've asked for. And I want to thank again the media that's here to help get our story out to the public, to our citizens, and particular thanks to our fire districts for their interest in getting the word out to our citizens as well.
Just real quick, in the 13 districts, what's the manpower number? Val?
So daily? Yeah, that's a good question. And actually, I didn't even think to look that number up. It's over 100, but you're talking about, there's 50 fire stations that are manned roughly, or 51, I think. There's a couple that are under construction, but you got to understand that's spread out over 845 square miles of land and 1,100 if you include water. And so it sounds like a lot, but it's really not when you consider the amount of area it covers and the shifts.
You gotta consider shifts.
Yeah, and so
100 total.
yes, at any given time, and so and that's spread out over the entire parish. So, and that's a rough number. It may be a little less than that, honestly. I'm just going off of the two numbers I can think of off the top of my head with District 4 and 1, which are the two biggest.
I just want to be clear, 100 on duty?
100 on duty.
Okay, so what's the
Spread
whole-
out over 50 stations. So if they're not on duty, then they have to be called back in to respond. So that number's around 500. If you count volunteers and everyone, that number's around 500. And it fluctuates obviously up and down. I think Mandeville's had like 10 people retire in the last, it seems like a couple of months. So, but anyway, yeah, it's about 100 on shift at any given time throughout the parish.
Thank you.
Thanks again. If there are no other questions, I thank you all for being